So after having, let's say, discussed a lot about how technology is revamping the insurance industry, let's be a bit more specific, having a look at the value chain itself. Let's see how technology and your three solutions are addressing three different parts of the value chain. And sorry for the insurers in the room that will be maybe a bit afraid about that split of the value chain in three parts, so the price and product, distribution and claim. But we thought that it would be the easiest way to run that discussion. Maybe to start with, a few words about your business and where you mainly position yourself in that, let's say, easy way to present the value chain.
Yes, gladly. WeGroup built actually a connected insurance platform that helps initially insurance brokers, insurance distributors to have an opening towards everyone in the insurance space. So thanks to open data, they can easily access the need and risk profiles of their customers, link insurance products to that, and service that accordingly. And the interesting thing over there is that initially we started off with those traditional distributors, but today we are more and more moving towards the new kind of distributors. Car dealers coming to us asking, okay, we do want to sell insurance, however, if we tomorrow get a claim, we have no idea how to service that, right? So we, thanks to our platform, which we call the WEAS and operates as a broker as a service, if you will, they have the possibility to service that too tomorrow.
Interesting. So mainly, let's say, on the distribution part. Julio, on your side, Bdeo, a few words about your company and where you position yourself on the value chain?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Florian. Yeah, so we are Bdeo. We provide visual intelligence for the insurance industry. And when I say visual intelligence, I mean that we are able to extract information from the data, from the visual channels, understand what is happening, and from that we are able to automate certain processes. We use artificial intelligence and blockchain, and the typical use case is, for instance, underwriting, right? So we have a photo capture, a smart web app where we are able to capture information of the customer and interpret what is happening, right? So with that, we are able to recognize damage or underwrite directly the insurance, or we can set up, for instance, a deductible, right, in case of any damage. So we help in underwriting and in the claims too.
Thanks. And Christophe, a few words about Zelros?
Yes, so we are Zelros. We are based in Paris, and we also started offices in Germany and Italy. So we are a software vendor, and our software is used by insurance agents and advisors. And our software helps them to be more efficient and more relevant in proposing products to their customers, and offering them a better experience as well. And how we do that? By leveraging on connecting to all type of data and computing scores on predictions on which product, which option, which arguments to highlight to be more relevant.
That's interesting because, again, I think that your products are complementary to each other, but all of you mentioned data, so let's start with that part, because we know that, as insurers like to say, insurance is all about data. So how do you manage in your own experience to convince them to share their data, to feed your solution and then deliver value to them? Maybe, Julio, you wanted to start on that part?
Yeah, for sure. The truth is that the customer value chain is so big, there are so many things to do in different areas, that it's just a matter of convince them that you can show them value in the short term, right? So, and we see that we are, together we are stronger, that's obvious, but when we think that we are a startup that is working with different customers, that's something that is really interesting for the insurance companies. In our case, for instance, we are working with around 20 companies in different parts of the world. So the variety of data that we have is really interesting for them, right? So, and here what we try to do is to have an honest approach, a practical approach of the value that they're going to get in the short term. And that's something that they really appreciate. So that's how we manage to convince them. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't.
Okay. You?
Well, in our case, we pretty early on saw that it would not happen, that insurance companies simply would not share the data with us. So we said in the beginning, okay, we work with external data exclusively. And today we use over 900 different data sets. For example, if somebody puts in an address, we can tell how the house looks like, what the surface is, if there are solar panels, and so on and so forth. And we actually provide that data to the insurance companies. And what we see now in the next phase of the company is that those insurance companies say, well, you actually tell us much more than we initially knew or that we initially were using. So apparently you can do some magic between brackets with data. Maybe now we can talk about some exchange. So in the next phase, we do expect that we will get a lot more information from them as well. But up till now, it's completely on our own without any insurers' data.
Okay, so that's interesting. So basically you are relying on the external data, showing them that you can deliver value on this one, and maybe try to find a deal with them saying, okay, we can bring those external data to you if you share your own data with us. So that's a kind of trade that you are trying to get with them.
Well, today, obviously, everybody wants to do more business, right? And with an insurance company, it's very easy to talk in the beginning up till you come till the point where you ask them for data, because they will always say no, obviously, nowadays, which is understandable, I get. But the moment that we say, okay, well, we saw over here that this guy has a house, for example, and you would normally sell property insurance over there, but our satellite imagery also indicates that he has a carport, so there is an upselling potential for a car insurance. Or we see, based on his social media, that he has 4 children, for example, so there is an upsell for personal liability or whatever. Then the insurer says, okay, you do bring in more business for us. Now we can really talk because you prove that what you said is initially true. So that's where it starts, I guess, as an insurtech.
Okay, interesting. And by the way, thanks for the transition with Christophe. I think that you can maybe say a bit more about your solution to, let's say, help agents upsell, because I think that this is a perfect link with what I has just said and how you manage on your side to get insurance data.
Yeah, indeed. As we, of course, a solution works with data. There is no AI without data. We work with incumbents, tier 1 insurance and bank insurance players. And for them, it's not obvious to use data for intelligent things. But we believe they have no choice to make this move, because if they don't become technology data-centric companies, I mean, they will die, and the other ones threaten them. I mean, the new insurtechs or the big techs will take the place. So it's not obvious for them, but things are moving. What we are observing is that the level of maturity is very different between players, and the access to data is also a long-term journey. What we explain to our customers is also that they don't need to, of course, wait to have all the data well documented in well quality and easily accessible to start doing things. Of course, you can start with a small amount of data and then improving things. I will give one example. One of the game-changing type of data that will be leveraged in the future by insurance players is voice, live conversations between the insurer and the advisor. Of course, incumbents are still far from using this type of data, so they start with other types of data, but the road is to use it in the future. So we go step by step. We are ahead of time in terms of technology compared to where they are, but we hope that, and we are sure that things will accelerate in this direction.
Yeah, and interesting to see how they could or they should embrace external technology for this kind of thing that they can't leverage on themselves. Maybe Julio on the claim part, because back to the first panel this morning on Egon mentioning that they are using OCR, trying to detect fraud and so on. So how would you say that the value proposition from yourself could help again ensure better deliver value for their customer. And could you say a bit more about the challenge on working with insurers, meaning the process itself, the discussion? Is that a talent issue? Is that a tech issue? Is that just a project issue? Yeah. And how deep are you integrated into their tech layer as well?
So I will start with this last part of the question. In our experience, we are dealing with we are traditionally antagonistic entities, right? So the risk aversion of one company is facing the inherent risk of a startup, right? At least at the beginning. So there is a cultural shock when you try to have a project in common, right? So because a company that has been doing the same things the same way for the last 20, 30 years, you are not going to change a core process in a couple of months, right? So the startups, we want something fast, quick, and to invoice as soon as possible. And they want to test the technology. That's the famous pilot that sometimes is attached with the word free, or what it means for the startup. So for us, has been really difficult. The sales cycle is really long, but at the end, once you start to work with one of these companies, you have a project for life. Our lifetime value is really long, right? If you do things correctly, you keep working with them. So and what we do exactly, how we help during the claims process or the underwriting, we are able with our technology to be sure that the pictures that we are taking are good enough for the insurer. And we are also fighting against fraud with the blockchain platform in order to be sure that those pictures are the same vehicle, are the same car, and they have not been modified. So that's something that we are helping them directly in the fraud KPI. And then the speeding up the process, right? Normally a customer, it takes a lot of time to send information, and we are helping them to improve a lot the customer satisfaction experience. So around 20 points in the NPS is the average of the insurers that they are working with us. So that's our direct KPIs that we are improving: operational cost for the insurers, handling times, and finally the customer experience. So I think that's how, with this type of technology, we can help directly in one of the biggest pain points, that is claims, for instance.
Okay. Thanks. And Arvid, on your side, how do you see the relationship with the insurance players? So you mentioned the challenge on data, and you explained how you address that part. So in terms of just implementation with insurers, how you deal with that, and what's the major challenge? And most of all, how do you manage to achieve that? And is there any pattern among your customers that you could share with the audience, so that for insurers in the room, they could work into that direction?
Well, in terms of partnerships with insurance companies today, or how we did that, is we typically use what we call the bottom-up strategy. We start with the insurance brokers, because obviously they're the distribution level, and from the distributors, the brokers, we go to the insurance companies. And what they see over there is the data, and the way that we use that data, that actually significantly changes the customer experience today, because obviously what is one of the biggest hassles for an end client in the process, that is that it takes long. If I want to have a property insurance, in Belgium, in France, in Germany, whatsoever, it takes a tremendous amount of time. I have to fill in lots of forms, this and that, whereas today, our technology can actually transform that. Based on your address, you have your quotes for property insurance. Based on your license plate, you have it for car insurance, and so on and so forth. So it goes very, very fast. And when insurance companies see that, they actually become very willing to cooperate. And then the second part of your question is, how can we actually do that? And typically, if you ask me, how do you want that integration? Obviously, API layers is the best way to do it. Unfortunately, 99% of the insurance companies that we talk to today, they don't have the API layers. So that's a different story there. And we do it in two ways. Either we go with a workaround. For example, we work together with a platform they already working with, such as Guidewire, such as MSG, for example. Or we simply say, okay, dear insurer, we have experience in this. Would you be willing to have us setting up your API layer? And that's something that we now, I would say, developed a little side business around. So we have, well, I don't want to use too much corporate terms as a startup, but we have a different business unit inside WeGroup that builds API layers for insurance companies. So actually, we first make sure that you have the right plugs, and then obviously we hope that we can plug in our cables as well and make it all work.
Okay, that's interesting. And back to you, Christophe. You mentioned preparing that panel, that actually you've cracked the kind of sales process, managing to avoid the proof of concept that you mentioned, Julio. So could you say a bit more about that? Is that related to the state of maturity of your company, or is that related to the state of maturity of corporate with whom you're dealing with?
Yeah, I think it's both. It's true that at the beginning and as a startup, we generally enter the incumbent organizations through the innovation teams and innovation business units, and you know that it's a fast path to make some pilots or POCs, but it's very complicated afterwards to grow to production. And as a startup, we were not very clear on the metrics, the success metrics to measure, to jump from POC to production. Now that the level of maturity, of organizations are better, we are able to enter directly on the business owners, typically head of distribution or head of sales of the organization, who generally has the budget, and then afterwards, of course, we have to deal with the IT people. And as we are more mature on our metrics, we are able from day one to put in place measurement on metrics. In our case, it's typically number of sales opportunity, increase in number of sales opportunities, and an increase in rate conversion. And we have abilities with A/B testing to make this measurement, and so this facilitates the deployment at scale of our solution.
And do you see a pattern among players? So I guess that you are mainly working with insurers. You mentioned brokers, so it could be interesting to hear the three of you on, is there any part of the players that are more mature or with whom it's easier to work? And when I say partner, it's insurer, reinsurers, brokers, any other player. So option A, option B, or discussion B is on the geographic scope. You are in 3 countries that are different. You mentioned that you are in Italy and Germany. You are as well in several other countries. So it could be great to see whether one market is ahead of another one. And again, in terms of player, is there any difference between the key players? Maybe Arvid to start with.
Well, first of all, I think I have the luck that I come from Belgium, so typically that means that whatever is happening in Europe, it will happen 5 years later in Belgium. That's basically how it works. We're lacking a lot behind in technology, so that gives us a very good starting position, because obviously when we expand to other countries, it becomes fairly easy because we all did it already. Well, that's basically how it goes. And the second thing over there is, from the very beginning, when you come from Belgium, you have to look at internationalization, because our home market is so small that obviously it's not sustainable for business. But when it comes to working with insurance players, we typically see that it's easiest to start working with players who have not a long deal cycle. For example, that's why we go with insurance brokers first, because an insurance broker simply doesn't need 1 year to decide whether or not he wants to take a product or not. So they obviously give you the trust, and that's, like I said, how it works before. As soon as you control a part of the distribution chain, it is very easy to go to the insurance companies. And how we move up there is simply we start with the challengers, which is obvious, the more smaller insurance companies in one market, up till the point where we, of course, our main market is Belgium still today, although we are active in some others, where we see that almost every insurance company except the market leader today is working with us. And I am confident that at one point a market leader might follow, but up till now we don't even need them, and most of our brokers who work with them and in the past worked with that market leader too say, well, actually we don't need them too, because you have all the rest. So that's basically how it works, and also the strategy how we go to the other markets as well.
Okay, and Julio, on the Spanish market or any other market in which you are evolving?
So Arvid, if you are 5 years ahead, before we are like in Neolithic. So yeah, so it's true that we are actually in 3 different continents, Europe, Africa, and South America, and I think there is a common pattern that is the new insurers, the new online insurers, they really are looking for technology and to improve the customer experience, and it's something that you are seeing, maybe because people in these companies are younger, But one interesting differentiator between this South America and Europe is that we found that in South America and even Spain, people try to have more a human contact, right? When something happens, when you have a claim, when you have to interact with your insurer, normally in those countries, you have to have someone at the other side to see them, right? Depending on the type of claim, but also depending on the age, that they need to see the someone at the other side. While in Europe, it's something that we don't want to deal with anyone. We just want to do it as fast as we could. So this is an interesting pattern that I think is related with the culture.
Okay. Interesting. And you, Christophe?
A pattern that we observe maybe in the past 6 months, or both in Italy, Germany, and France, is a bank assurance pattern. That's true that our technology solve a big problem for bank insurers. The fact that bank advisors know very well how to sell financial products, but when it comes time to sell insurance product, they don't know how to proceed. So being helped by a technology like ours is very strategic. And as also you know, the economical figures of Europe are not so good for financial services. Insurance is seen by banks as a future part of their growth, and so it's strategic for them to distribute insurance. So that's a pattern we see a lot, and that's why in bank insurance our solution has a lot of success.
Yeah, and
maybe if I can elaborate on that a little bit, I think one of the problems today is that we do see that the way of insurance distribution is always lacking behind a little bit with different insurance companies, and that is where the problem with customer experience is today. That is, I remember a couple of years ago, and most insurers in the room will remember it as well, is that people everywhere in Europe said, okay, direct insurance, this is going to be the next big thing, right? We are 50% of the market is going to be direct. Today we are 5 or 10 years later even, and not even half of what we expected will be direct is direct right now, which means that the intermediaries still play a very significant role, yet it's there that the customer experience is lacking behind most of the time. I cannot speak for all of the other countries, but when I speak for Belgium, I have to go to a broker, I have to have a conversation, he takes my information, then he makes some quotes, I go back home, he sends it to me, I go back to sign it, and so on and so. So that is crazy, and obviously that is why direct insurance might win some ground today. So that is obviously what, and I think everybody here at the table does that in his own way with its technology, makes it possible via the data, via very fast entry points, to have these intermediaries have the abilities to sell that insurance product easily, to determine that need and that risk very easily, and therefore enhancing that customer experience the way it actually should be and the way it, well, now has to be, I think.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and I think that back to what both of you mentioned, the insurance is a margin product. So bank, I think, see it way more than just revenue. It could be margin for them as well. So that's the major difference as an investor in insurtech I see between fintech and insurtech. Again, insurance is a margin product, so that's why I think it's so interesting, and maybe that's why as well this industry is lagging behind financial services more generally. Maybe what might be interesting, because all of you are quite dedicated to one part of the value chain. You have one product right now, or one major, let's say this way, one major value proposition. So how do you see the future of your company? So do you think that expanding alongside the value chain would be relevant? Don't you think that insurers are coming to you because you are very strong on one very specific pain point? Or do you think that your future is just expanding your existing solution into other geographies? Maybe Julio?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, in our case, and related with the value chain, as I said before, it's so wide, so spread the value chain, that is so difficult for the insurers to focus in every aspect of the value chain. And in our case, we are very focused on something, and that's where we are good right now. We are looking for other areas, but now we want to be the best in our arena, and they will think about growing in other sectors. There are some full stack insurers, but I think that the future comes with collaboration, right? We think about a future, we are going to be better if we work together. We want to have a better value proposition. Let's go together to an insurer and work. I think that's the way, collaborating between insurers and different startups. That's my opinion.
Christophe, how do you see the future of Zelros?
Yeah, same for us. I mean, the story of Zelros is a story of being more and more focused on our strategies is really to be the leading provider on this very specific software for distribution. Of course, we have the ambition at one point of time to open other use cases, but our strategy is to focus on this in France, Europe, and outside Europe, be kind of leading provider of this segment and category, and then being in good place, hopefully with our partners and clients, open new use cases on other parts of the value chain.
You, Arvid?
I think for us, what we see today is whatever we come, whether it's a broker or an insurer or a TPA, whatever, they always say we want to be the spider in the web, right? So the story that we bring over there is, okay, well, we as WeGroup, we want to be the web. We want to make sure that you can be connected to whatever party you, well, want to be connected to. And the second thing over there is, as especially a small company, such as a broker, which is an SME most of the time, or even a TPA, you don't want to integrate with 200 different insurtech startups, right? You want to have the full solution. So obviously for us, it means that we need to expand all over the value chain of insurance, which doesn't mean that we need to build all ourselves. I mean, it could be perfectly partnering up with other insurtechs, but one party should bring it to that end client, because just as for everybody in this room, customer experience is important towards their customers, it is the same for us towards these people, towards you, because you are our customers most of the time, right? So it also needs to be fast and simple and fully integrated without 6 months of testing and then another link of the value chain with another 6 months of testing and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I think maybe to add on top of that, we see a huge pattern among insurance companies, obviously on what you mentioned, so they don't want to have many discussion with many startups, but they are looking for results as well. And I think that engaging with one startup they trust could help identify behind the scene technology that could be useful and that could deliver true results. Thanks a lot for that discussion. Thanks for this insight. Please have a lot of applause for them. Thanks again.